right? We can charge 74 and you still make 1%, right? Obviously, we're not doing that. But
Exactly.
we can literally sit there and charge because people get caught up. Well, I'm not going to give away 15, 16%, 20% because it's deal. But you use our money to go make 75% on our money.
Exactly.
And all day long, that works twice on Sunday, right?
Exactly.
It's just amazing that I'm glad we can get to talk about. What is more important to you? Getting the most money or the lowest payment on a 5-year or 10-year deal? Granted, let you guys all know we're doing these on either 5 or 10-year. We don't go too much farther, but on a 5-year deal, what is more important to you most of the time? The most cash out or the lowest payment? Because if we do the max cash, it may be above your current P&I that you're receiving from your position wrap note borrower.
Exactly. So in the 5-year mark, the most cash is what I'm looking for because I'm gonna take the cash I'm unlocking and go out and do 2, 3 more deals, and therefore I'm gonna absorb the high interest rate for the 5-year part. Now, once we go out to 10 years, and even if we were to get into 10 or 15, now I'm looking for more of a payment because now I'm structuring the deal around long term where we're both making profit.
Yep.
Yeah, down the road. So it all depends on the term.
Yeah. So one of the things too you didn't realize before we did this deal, and we want to stress, is servicing.
Yeah.
Okay. You create a note, you record the note, which is one thing we learned during this deal. Make sure you record your land contracts, right? Make sure your borrower has everything in hand. But servicing, how are you servicing your note before we talked?
Well, we're saying I got 20 plus years as a property manager. So me servicing it is just using my standard uh, real estate accounting software. We'll say without giving let's say a plug to any particular company. There's 3 big ones out there, and I use one of the 3. So I've been servicing them myself. The more and more I get into these, I will be kicking them over to servicers. And one of the servicers that you introduced me to, I like the way they operate, so I might even start using them as well.
Awesome. It's amazing. Go ahead, Nathan.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
yeah. Yeah. So when we talk about this stuff, what is the key things that you learned during this process? We're going to open up for questioning too, so make sure you get your questions ready. What did you learn through this process? What things did you take away? What things would you do differently in the future for future creation of notes?
Well, pretty much one, I learned that y'all exist. That's the first thing that was wild. 2, when I instead of doing my little property manager, hey, let me sit down and see if you're going to be a good fit. I will actually start to use a mortgage loan origination person so that I have the proper disclosures, so that I don't get caught up in the predatory lending clauses out there that they protect consumers. One of the things that I was already aware of, and most people are not aware of, is the Dodd-Frank guidelines. Whereas if I'm doing something, and the person that's in the house is an owner occupant, I can't put a balloon on their product. So therefore, if I'm dealing with another investor or a property manager or a company, then that's a business-to-business transaction. But there are certain protections that you're not aware of. Dodd-Frank will penalize you for if you do not give certain guidelines. So you can't do balloons and other little things. So that I was already aware of. But once I start looking into the originations of the loans, I'm like, there's a couple other protections out there that usury laws. That was something that I had to sit down with my attorney and be educated on. And that's something else I learned from y'all. I mean, that's basically one of the things I'll do different. I will
one things too is you meant we went over. What was the one thing I pointed out about your notes that I says, dude, you can't do this anymore, about some of the terms of your note?
The terms,
4 or 5%.
Yeah, the interest rate. So let's say I was the take over a note at 3%, I would sell that note to someone else for 6%. I'm happy with the 3% return, but there's not enough money for multiple people to be involved. So
Nathan, what do you think about that? You get a list of seller finance notes they create at 6%.
I know that was saying
Don't try to compete with the bank.
Yes, you're right. Banks are giving loans at 6, 7, 8, 10%. Why are you doing it, right? What are you getting from it? And I get Joe's point that he was making a 3% spread. But you can't sell it. You can't borrow against it. So don't create those notes at 6, 7, 8%. You got to be above 10 if you can create it. There's also that ability to repay. So you got to make sure the borrower can pay the payment, but get that loan up. That borrower may not be the right borrower for your asset. So the ability to repay is part of that process of underwriting. We have nationwide RMLOs that we can connect you with. But yeah, Joe, no more 5% notes, 6%
Oh, you
notes.
never see another 5% note from us. We're saying that one that we were doing was 9%, and that was a fluke. We're saying because normally I'm between 6 and 8%, and I actually went 9% on that last one. And you're like, that's the bare minimum I want to see from you. So I'm like, hey.
So those people who are doing it, I want to see in the chat box and YouTube, what percentage are you averaging when you create that wrap note, that position selling? And if you use a different term, let us know as well. What rates are you selling your notes at? I'm curious to see where that kind of that range is. Are you 6 to 8, 8 to 10? No feelings hurt. What were you doing beforehand? And while you tell us that in your comments, I'll share a little bit about, we have a great chart that we provide everyone to show what happens if you create notes at 5 or 6, and we want, let's just go crazy, 20%. What kind of discount you're going to expect if that note is lower? Because notes are not bought on UPB. We've done plenty of webinars on it. It's based on the term numbers. What was the length of the term? What is the interest rate? Because those two driving factors drive what you can sell the note. Remember that interest rate is your annual return on the note for note buyers. Everything else is principal. So I would encourage you guys to take a look at the chart. I put in the link a website that I have to kind of look at the FAQs, our frequently asked questions. And if you want to submit a note for us to look at, to hypothecate, to lend against, you can put it in there. With that said, I'd like to, awesome, we've seen 10s and 12s. This is great, right? Remember, I know Rakesh and LinkedIn said he's new. So Nathan, what do you think about all this? This is new for us.
New people are welcome.
Yeah. So Nathan, what do you think about all this? This is great stuff.
It's fascinating. This is really good. And just going to the creation of your note and what kind of interest rate, the reason that the person is seller financing is because they can't get a loan from a bank. So because they can't get a loan at a bank at 7 or 8%, you have every right to charge more because you're offering a specialized service. So they can't qualify normally. That's not to say they're not good borrowers. They just don't fit the bank's box.
Yeah.
As a self-employed person, it's hard for me to get a bank loan. And I make plenty of money, but I'm self-employed and banks don't like that. And so it's hard for me to get that loan. So it's those kind of people a lot of the time, self-employed people that just need a loan. They just don't fit the bank's box. So I really like this. We looked at the numbers on this together with the hypothecation. To me, it makes more sense than, like, for me to buy them, it makes more sense than as a partial. Just because I'm always in the back of my mind, I have to be thinking about, okay, at the end of my fund, I have to liquidate and pay everybody back their capital. So there has to be something there that I can sell at the end, some way that I can bump out in order to get that capital back.
And I'll say this for those
hypothecation from the numbers.
Yeah. So partial kind of hurts because you don't get that principal number back. But I would tell you that if you are looking to be passive, reach out to us. We can help you out with that. Capital cost is our biggest threshold in our business. So if you are looking for, to get into deals like that, reach out to us. We can make things happen for you that may work for your numbers. So if you're tired of your 5% money in the banks or 6% CDs, let us know. We're seeing 12s, 10s, 11s, which is great. So one of the questions we got was, how do you avoid usury laws that go above 10? How do you avoid usury laws? It scares me to go above 10%. Each state has regulations, and there's a federal government regulation of what it can be. So yes, there's sometimes the usury law per state is fixed, but the federal government allows certain things. So I would tell you to talk to your attorney, local attorney, to see what you can do and what you can't do in your state. So good question, Gerald. And yes, absolutely. So Joe, when we do these kind of things, if someone's looking to do this, what would you tell them about the process? What was overwhelming for you? What was easy for you? What made sense to you?
Well, a lot of it, nothing really was overwhelming. Some of it was new learning. And then one of the things that it becomes when you do it properly, it gets really, really close to the feel of a standard closing. So the original arrangements that you're working with your the person that you're borrowing, the end borrower, not me, but the end borrower, you might give them some leeways. Hey, maybe they don't hit the 40% that the bank was saying debt to income ratio.
DTI, yep.
But you know, with that being said, there still's got to be some kind of guidelines that, you know, you're not loaning or putting someone in these projects that's in a 75% DTI range. So we were saying, you know, you might do 50% or whatever, but you got to still be responsible for whatever you're doing. And the amount of legal paperwork that follows up behind everything is very similar to a closing. So that's one of the things that was one of the biggest things that I